Alison, the online piano and the online violin tutor. Today I'm going to be talking about intervals which are in the Grade 5 theory syllabus, so the ABRSM Grade 5 theory syllabus. I've decided to separate out some of the individual components that are in the syllabus, just because the video would just be so long if I tried to compress everything in the Grade 5 syllabus, like I have done with the other videos, grades 1, 2, 3 and 4 theory. There would just be so much in there, the videos would just be so long and I would just gloss over everything and not really give you guys much information at all. So for the most part I've separated out some of the parts of the syllabus. So today we're going to be talking just about intervals, but please check out my other videos and they will be on the other topics that are covered in the ABRSM syllabus. So I'm going to be talking about intervals, but I'm sort of assuming that you guys have had some information at least on some Grade 5 theory, or the intervals part of Grade 5 theory at least. I think it would probably be quite difficult if you were trying to learn all this from absolute scratch. You would at least have had to have followed my other videos or have some knowledge of some kind from grades 1 to 4 at least to be able to come and have a look at Grade 5. Or, you know, maybe you're just looking at this for a bit of a taster, or maybe you've had some class lessons, for example, and you're not quite sure of some of the information, and you know you just need someone like me maybe just to go over it and give yourself kind of a second opinion, so to speak. So I've done some in the style of my other videos. I've done some worksheets for you that you can download and print out completely for free, and I'm just going to be going through the worksheets. So I'm going to be talking about intervals. So these are my thoughts, these are my opinions, this is how I teach intervals to my students. There isn't necessarily a right or a wrong way or any particular way to teach intervals to students, just as long as the answer is the correct answer. As long as everybody arrives at the same answer, it doesn't really matter how it gets taught. So this is how I teach it, so it might be useful for some of you just to have a different aspect on that. If just have a look on here. Now, there are different types of intervals that you can have. Major, minor, diminished or augmented intervals, and you can have perfect, diminished and augmented intervals as well. Now, the difference between the two here are that you can have a second, a third, a sixth or a seventh can be major, minor, diminished or augmented, but the reason why I refer down to here is because a fourth, a fifth and an eighth, which is actually an octave, can only ever be perfect, diminished or augmented. A fourth, a fifth or an eighth can never be called major or minor, and a second, third, sixth and seventh can never be called perfect. Okay? But they can all be called diminished and augmented, Now the row of numbers under here are the compound version. So when you get beyond an octave, it's given a compound number. For example, if you were going from C to E, C, D, E, that would be an interval of a third. If you were going from C to E, the next E up, it would be, you'd have to count C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then, sorry, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. So that would actually be an interval of a tenth. So you're counting more than an octave apart. But because a tenth is pretty much the same as a third, it's just called a compound tenth. So you'd still work it all out in exactly the same way, but you must either call it a tenth, your answer must be tenth, or you can call it compound third. You can't just leave it at third because it isn't a third. The gap is much bigger than a third is. So these are just underneath each number, fourth, fifth and eighth, is the related compound version of that, to try and help you remember. So if you're not very good at remembering the compounds, just try and work out what it is in normal numbers, you know, like 2, 3, 6 or 7th, and just put the word compound in front of it. It doesn't really matter. But when you're looking at an example in your theory tests, you might just want to just count up perhaps the lines and spaces, and that will give you your number, and that will be that. So anyway, that's all written there for you. And this is just a little chart of how you would travel through, starting at, say, a natural note, how you would, if you went to the right, if you were raising a note, whatever, then you'd have a sharp. This is actually a double sharp. I know it's not quite right, but it's the best that I could get on my computer. Going to the left is a flat, and then that is actually a double flat, believe it or not. So this is just like a little flow chart, but we will be referring to that in just a moment. So if you were working out your intervals, I have a sort of 4-step process for working out these intervals. If you can go through your 4 steps, then you limit the amount of mistakes that you actually make. So if I start with number 1, step 1, write out the notes and number of the interval. So that's just writing out your example. If you've got, I don't know, B to F sharp, that's it, write out B, F sharp, and then the number of the interval, B, C, D, E, F, so that would be a fifth. So B to dash F sharp, however you do that, fifth. So that's your question. So you're writing out the question in a sense, what you see. Step 2 would be change if necessary. Now I will go through that in a little bit more detail, but you only need to change the note if, you only need to change an interval if, say for example, you've got a note like an A sharp that doesn't have a key signature to it at all. So there isn't such key, or A sharp major, I'm sorry, I'm talking about major keys here. So if there isn't an A sharp major key, then obviously you need to change it, because you can't work out, you know, A sharp major scale. It'll be a nightmare, you'll make too many mistakes. So you can take it down from an A sharp to an A, but whatever you do on one side, you have to do on the other side as well to balance out the scales. So if you took an A sharp down to A, if the other note was F sharp, that would have to go down to an F. It both has to go down the same way. Don't have one going the other. So they have to be level. You have to pick them up and move them down together. Whatever you do one side, you must do on the other side. So that's step 2, change if necessary. You might not always need to do that. 9 times out of 10, you probably won't need to do that. So write step 2 and just put a line through it, cross through it, so you know you haven't got to do it. Step 3, work out the major or the stroke perfect interval. Now I've done that because major stroke perfect, because it depends on if you're talking about a 2nd, 3rd, 6th or 7th, that's going to be major or called major. If you've got a 4th, 5th or 8th, that would be called perfect. It's kind of like perfect and major are more or less the same word, if you want to think of it like that. But the different numbers apply to major and perfect. So you work out your major stroke perfect interval. So using that example I said just a second ago, if you had A sharp to F sharp, you've taken it down to A and then to F. So what you are, so A to F is A, B, C, D, E, F. So it's a 6th. So you know you're talking about this chart here. So you need to know what the 6th note of A major scale really is, so that you've got something to work it out from. You're giving yourself a home base to work the actual question, which we put in step 1, out from. So what F is it that really is in the A major scale? Now you can work that out in one of 2 ways. You can either imagine your A major scale in your head, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, so I know actually an F sharp travels through, or you can have a look in your key signature. Go through to your key signature chart, just work out how many sharps or flats are in A major. If F is one of those sharps, then obviously it's F sharp. If F isn't one of those sharps, then it's just a normal F. But F is one of those sharps. If you have a look in the key signature of A major, you'll find there are 3 sharps in there: Fred, Charles and goes, F, C sharp, G sharp. So F is one of them. So we know that F sharp runs through the A major scale. So back to step 3, work out the major interval. Well, A to F sharp is major because it runs right through the A major scale. Now we would write that down. Now we've got that. Use the charts at the top, so this one here and this one, to work out your answer. So you're going to go from F sharp to F, which was in the question. So I'll go through this again if I'm going a little bit quickly, and I haven't got anything written down. So you know F sharp is major, so you put one finger on major and one finger on sharp. But since the question was A to F natural, if I'm going down that way, my other finger goes down 1. So can you see how I did that? So I started at major and I started at sharp because it was F sharp that was in the A major scale, but the actual question is A to F natural. So I go down 1 to F natural. If I go down 1 to F natural, then my other finger has to go down 1 to minor. So it would actually be a minor interval. So have a look at example 1 here. So step 1, write out the notes and the number of the intervals. So this is the question. I've just randomly made this up. So our question is C to G sharp, and that gives us a fifth. So that's our question. So step number 2, change if necessary. Well, I actually don't need to change anything in here because a C major scale, that's really easy, and it is actually a genuine key, so I haven't got to bother changing anything. It's fine. So I won't do that. Step 3, work out the major stroke perfect interval. Well, it's actually going to be perfect, isn't it? Because it's actually a fifth. So I want to know what kind of G runs straight through the C major scale. So we're talking about the C major scale because that's obviously that's the number, that's the first, sorry, that's the first note, or the lowest note in the interval. Don't forget, when you're looking at these intervals on the paper, even if the lowest note comes second, you must always work the interval out from the lowest note. Always from the lowest note, never from the highest note. So from the lowest note, that's the key stroke scale that you're going to be in. So I want to know what kind of G runs through the C major scale so that I've got a base for myself to work the actual question, which was this one, C to G sharp, out from. So looking at my key signature, I know that C major doesn't have any sharps or any flats, so therefore a G natural runs through the C major scale. So that means that C to G would be a perfect interval. Now I use the charts at the top, so this one now and this one here, to work out what the actual answer is. So I know that I'm going from G to G sharp because G is the major, G is the note that, sorry, G is the perfect fifth note that runs through the C major scale. So I'm going to start there. So I've got perfect and a G natural here. Now I need to go from a G natural to a G sharp. So my top finger moves up to G sharp. So this one moves one to the right as well. Wherever you're moving from here, you do exactly the same. They work in tandem with each other. So we're going from a G natural to a G sharp, G natural to a G sharp, went up one, so a G natural was perfect, we went up one to augmented, so the answer C to G sharp equals an augmented fifth. I'll do another exercise for you. Exercise 2, A sharp to G sharp, it's a seventh, so that's the question that I've just randomly made up for you. Now, just as I was talking in the example at the beginning, step 2, change if necessary. Well, yes please, I do want to change because I don't know the A sharp major scale, not got a clue, it doesn't exist. So I'm going to change, I'm going to go from A sharp, bring it down to A natural because I do know the A major scale, and wherever I do one side I have to do the other side. So I'm going to take G sharp down to G natural, so my new interval is now A to G. It's obviously still a seventh because you haven't changed any letters. Do not change letters, by the way. Otherwise, if you do that, you'll change the width of the interval, 4th, 5th, 6th, whatever. So now step 1 is obsolete. It doesn't exist anymore. A sharp to G sharp doesn't exist. So A sharp to G sharp does not exist because I've crossed through it, because this is now our new question. This is now our new interval. So I want to know what, work out the major stroke perfect interval, so it's going to be major because it's a seventh, so we're looking at this one here. What G runs through A major scale? It is actually G sharp. If you looked in your key signature, it would be G sharp. A major has 3 sharps, Fred, Charles goes, F, C and G. So A to G sharp would be major, and then you're going from G sharp to G. So G sharp to G, so we start here, major, G sharp, this one moves down one, so this one moves down one. So that would be a minor seventh. There is actually a way that you can check if you've done your intervals correctly, and you can actually invert them. If you can get the hang of inverting them, it's so easy, then I think that you can more or less guarantee, assuming that everything's okay, you can more or less guarantee that you're not going to get any of the intervals wrong if you invert them, because it double checks your answers. So I haven't written any information about that on here, so I've got a little space on the end here, on the side here, so I'll put some information about inverting on them for you as well before I put it all up as a PDF for you. So if you invert them, it's so simple. If you just took the example that I've got here for exercise 1, C to G sharp, just turn it the other way round, G sharp to C, and work it out as you normally would. So with the number of your inverted interval, like second, third, fourth, that kind of thing, it must add up to 9. For example, C to G sharp is a fifth. Now if you inverted it, G sharp to C would be a fourth. And I know that because 5 plus 4 is 9. So I could either have gone G, A, B, C and worked out that it was 4, or I know it's going to be 4. So my answer for this one, C to G sharp, is an augmented fifth. Well, if I turned it round for G sharp to C, I can almost work out that the answer here is going to be a diminished fourth. Now, the intervals must add up to 9, so this one here is a seventh. If I was to turn it the other way around, G sharp to A sharp, it would be 7, 8, 9, so that would actually be a second. If I said my answer was a minor seventh, I would expect my inverted answer to be a major second. So major becomes minor, minor becomes major, augmented becomes diminished, diminished becomes augmented, they go together. But if an interval is perfect, it stays perfect. If you've got a perfect interval and you invert it, it still is perfect. The reason why it's perfect and perfect if you invert it is simply because it is just a true perfect interval. So if you have an interval that's perfect, when you invert it, it's so perfect that it becomes perfect. Does that sort of make sense? So you've got major and minor, they go together, augmented and diminished, and perfect, if you like. And the number of the intervals, the opposite, must add up to 9. So if you've got C to E, which is a third, 3 take away 9, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 would be 6, so your opposite answer would be a sixth. But I mean, you can work, once you've turned the letters around, you can always count up C, D, E. You can always count up the letters anywhere and work that out. So once you've got your sort of predicted answer for your inverted interval, you can just work out that interval as you normally would using all the steps on here. And if at the end your answer is the same as your inverted predicted interval, then you can pretty much guarantee that your original answer that you would have put on the paper is going to be correct. So inverting intervals is really good, and I do try and make all of my students do inverted intervals, because at the end of the day, you'd rather have you check over your own silly mistakes and correct them rather than have an examiner do that for you. Because if you have an examiner doing that for you and checking your silly mistakes and marking you down, then that's going to cost you valuable marks when you could have just gone through and checked it yourself. So my kind of thoughts on all this are that you don't know whether the questions in your paper are right or wrong, but what you can do is by using some of my little hints and tips and little tricks and things, and for example inverting those intervals, you can spot the silly mistakes and make sure that everything is as correct as it can be. So obviously you don't know if the answers are right or wrong, but you can limit if you're going wrong by inverting them in this case. So I don't think there's anything else that I need to mention on intervals. It is a very difficult subject to explain even to a student, but it's even harder to try and explain it through the camera to you. So I suspect some of you might be coming away from this maybe just more confused than you were before you watched it. Because I'm explaining things in a completely different way to maybe your teacher or to what you've read or to whatever has been explained to you, or you're just thinking, no, that's just gone right over my head. But you know, ask me questions, leave comments in the box underneath, and I will try my hardest to get back to you. My comments my inbox is getting very busy now in YouTube, and you know, people are coming back with some really good comments and good feedback for my videos, and you guys have lots of questions and things, but keep them coming. If you do ask a question, I'm sure there are hundreds of people out there that have exactly the same burning question as you, so I can obviously kill several birds with one stone, so to speak. So do leave me a comment. I will try and explain the best I can, but you know, it is very difficult trying to explain over the video, and it is very difficult trying to explain in the comments, but I'll try my hardest for you guys, you know, because we really want you all to pass this test. One other thing, when you've got your exam paper for the ABRSM Grade 5, and you have the intervals section on your paper, you're normally marked, or you're normally given 2 marks per interval. You'll be given 1 mark for getting the correct number, 5th, 6th, 7th, whatever, and you'll get 1 mark for saying whether it was major, minor, perfect, etc. So you should always at least get the number right. Be careful, don't do anything silly like miscount an interval. So if you've got like 5 intervals to do, then that's going to be 10 marks that you can get there. Minimum you can come away with is 5, because you should at least be able to count the number of, get the correct number or the width of the interval there. So you should at least come away with 5, even if you get the name of the interval wrong, major, minor, perfect, you should get the number correct. So thanks for watching. Leave a comment if you need any more help. I'll try and get back to you, but check out my other videos.